Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always...
You cheap little hooker. I wouldn't come near you right now if my life depended on it. You make me sick. I drank too much. I'm going to throw up. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
Why don't you call your pimp? You may as well do the whole thing if you're going to do multiple characters.
Well, I just love the rolling of the R's that follow with the I drank too much. It makes me really happy.
It is. Today we're talking about Tenebrae.
Nice.
Tenebrae.
Nice.
Tenebrae. Or Tenebrae. Depending on how it's spelled. There's different spellings. There's the proper one, which is the title.
Yeah, okay, which
what?
Which is the proper one?
Tenebrae. That's the actual the actual spelling of the word. It means, like, it translates into darkness.
Okay.
And what's interesting? Okay, well, first of all, before this escapes me, this movie is 40 years old. It's was released, well, not quite, but October 28th, 1982. This is a Dario Argento film. It is also his birthday this week, September 7th. So I figured it was 40-year anniversary, birthday, and this is actually my favorite horror movie of all time, actually. Yeah.
Wow, I just mugged, like, I just dropped my jaw and went, what? Like, that was the expression on my face.
You know why? You know why I think it is? Because I was just watching it last night, and it's just it dawned on me, this is a really gay movie. Like, there's a lot of gay in
Okay.
This might be the gayest horror movie that at least is not, like, overtly gay, but just, like, in terms of symbology and subtext. Like, there's a lot of gay in it. There's gay characters. It's pretty gay. It's gay.
The camp factor at times as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
And I love it for that. Yeah. It's
we'll
gay and it's fabulous. But what I was going to say initially, because Dario Argento, obviously, you know, he's one of these directors of horror that, you know, has a huge cult following, way more popular in Europe and Italy, where these films were made. But I think most North American audiences, like if you haven't seen this movie before, are familiar with Dario Argento because of Suspiria, because that was the most, like, commercially North American film of his. And in Suspiria, they kind of set up this this three mothers idea of, like, the three witches, this trilogy, which eventually happened. It goes Suspiria, Inferno, which were released 1977, 1980, and then it wasn't until 2007 that The Mother of Tears came out, which was the third and final chapter. But the names of the mothers were Suspiriorum, Tenebrarum, and Lacrimarum. So Tenebrarum, that, like, Inferno should have been called Tenebrae, and for whatever reason, that was not the title of that movie. It was Inferno, and then Tenebrae became this movie, and Tenebrae has nothing to do with Suspiria or Inferno or any of those movies. It's its own movie. It's part of the, well, giallo subgenre, which are basically, like, trashy Italian slasher movies, murder mysteries. Another reason why I really like this is because this is the Italian Scream. To me, I look at this. This is like the Italian version of Scream, in the 80s, the very 80s Italian Scream.
I love that. I had it right at the top. It was my first note because I noticed the two different spellings of Tenebrae, and I knew you were going to be the one to ask which spelling is correct. But so why is there a second spelling that ends with just BRE?
Yeah,
is it to, like, put it on par with macabre or something like that, like Tenebrae. I mean, what? Tenebrae. Yes.
I don't know. I was because I remember because we discussed this on the old podcast, and Eric Champney had joined us because he is big into Argento, and he had explained that it was just something that they had done on the, I guess the Anchor Bay releases, like the distribution of the DVDs and stuff. So it might have just been a North American thing. This was actually released in the States under the title Unsane, and it was like completely chopped up and edited. Like this movie, it did not see the light of day in a lot of regions until like probably as recently as maybe like the last 10 years, because this was, I don't know if you were familiar with the term video nasty, which was a British thing of just movies that were barred from being released in the UK. Okay. I think that might have just been in the UK, but like probably like a lot of places in Europe, like Germany and whatnot. And these were like, there was a list of movies, like a not a huge list, but you know, lots of horror movies, especially obviously, and this was one of them. So this was a movie that was very hard to come by, you know, upon its first release, and probably not until like physical media distributors like Anchor Bay started to release them in North America, and that's when I first saw it, like probably the early 2000s.
Okay. Yeah. I saw this first time because of you. So what was it, like
You're
a year
welcome.
ago, a year and a half ago? Yeah, thank
Something
you.
like that.
But there's the thing. I don't even remember what my initial response was overall. Do you?
I seem to recall like you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's
now you changed
interesting
your mind.
returning. No. It's not that I changed my mind, but it's just that, like, because I had watched it in pieces for our Final Girl After Dark podcast, because we had a final girl that we had to address in this, and I had to remind myself what she did in it. And I'm talking about...
Well, before...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Spoilers! Okay. A lot of people have not seen this movie, so I'm sure that, you know, this might be an episode that, you know, more mainstream listeners might skip over. I implore you to find this movie, watch it. Where is it streaming? I know it's on Shudder.
Yeah, it's on Shudder. You can also get it via Shudder via AMC Plus. That's what I did. Yeah, I'm sure you've got to be able to like drop like $3 or $4 to rent it off YouTube or Apple TV or something like that.
Honestly,
like,
worth it. Like this is
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of my favorite, if not my favorite horror movies. So obviously my favorite of Argento's movies, and you know, like all the movies that he made around that time, like in the 70s and 80s, were gold. Like that, you know, you can't go wrong with those. But yeah, this is my personal favorite, and he's still making movies. I don't know, he hasn't made anything in the last 10 years. He has a new movie coming out this year, or it's already been released in Italy, but it's should be, last I heard, it is getting released on Shudder. They're not sponsoring this, by the way. Just informing everyone. But it's called Dark Glasses, so I think it's another giallo murder mystery.
Okay.
So that, like, it should be coming out soon, like this fall. That's what I heard. The Italian name is Occhiali Neri, which I probably did not pronounce correctly. But yeah, the movies that he makes nowadays, they're not great. Like, he kind of lost his luster, unfortunately. So I think like the last good movie of his I saw was probably like over 20 years ago. But we're talking about Tenebrae here, so we're going to be as spoiler free as possible to a point.
Sorry,
so if you
I didn't know that.
No, you didn't. Well, I mean,
can Andre like bleep out my comment?
Yeah, sure. If Andre can figure out how to do that, then go for it.
Okay.
But
or just cut the sound, cut my mic, whatever.
In that one instance. But anyway, we'll we'll talk about it for a little bit in a non-spoiler sense. So, you know, if you want to just like hang out with us and listen to what we have to say to that point and then go check it out yourself. And then we'll start to talk about spoilers. We'll, you know, cap it there. Because obviously this is a murder mystery and it hasn't been seen by, you know, the mainstream public, you know, that I wouldn't want, you know, anyone's first experience of the movie just kind of to be told vicariously through this podcast. So,
right.
Do you have a spoiler-free synopsis you want to bring us into?
I believe so. Like, I'm rereading it now just to make sure that there's no
Okay, I'll keep talking until you're ready to go.
No, it's very brief, and also, like, I mean, if it ends up having a spoiler in it, we'll just cut it. But here, because also the reason I included this one, because I didn't modify it much from an IMDb. It's one of the plot, the synopses from IMDb.
Yeah.
And it's just because it made, outside of just like addressing the premise of the movie, it made some points that I want to know how you feel about them after I read this, and then that'll kickstart us. Okay. With Argento's trademark visual style, linked with one of his more coherent plots, this film follows a writer who arrives to Rome only to find somebody is using his novels as the inspiration and occasionally the means of committing murder. As the death toll mounts, the police are ever baffled, and the writer becomes more closely linked to the case than is comfortable. But can the blame truly fall on a book called Tenebrae? I was moving into like us territory with that voice.
Yeah, I was listening to that. I'm like, okay, you're whispering, but you're also doing the voice, and then you're also getting into Red from.
I'm all over the place. I'm a
mixing
mess.
your
What can I
voices
say?
up. Yeah. Okay. Well, if that didn't make any sense to anyone, essentially, this best-selling author goes to Rome on a book tour. He's promoting his new book, which is called Tenebrae, and all these murders start to happen as soon as he arrives. And they're linked to the book. You know, it's just, you know, has to do with pages from the book being found, you know, on or in the bodies of the victims, and they're all people, you know, that are linked to him and whatnot. So, you know, it's this big grand murder mystery with lots of twists and whatnot. And I say, you know, when I say it's like the Italian Scream, because I mean, like, there are a lot of Scream elements, or I should say that, like, you know, the elements that Scream took. You know, you have the killer making phone calls. You have like kind of the meta angle where the movie is called Tenebrae, but the Tenebrae is the book that he wrote in, you know, that he's promoting in the movie, and it's not like you know, it's almost like someone is recreating the book, but not like obviously the plot of what the book is, but just in terms of, you know, like the killer is like quoting pages from the book and just being like, you wrote these pages, and it's like sort of the inspiration for this killing spree.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, to address some things in the breakdown here, because I don't know if you could hear it or not, but the first part of the sentence, with Argento's trademark visual style, that alone, I was just kind of like, wait, I raised my hand, you know. I mean, I definitely, this is the thing, I've seen enough Argento films to feel like I can watch one and know when I'm watching one. But I think I had such I think Suspiria had such a profound effect on me, and I think in my mind I make it kind of epitomal as far as the visual style, or maybe what I like most about his visual style. It's not like I don't like it in here. I feel like but I don't feel like it's his trademark. I feel like it's much more subtly placed, maybe, except in extreme moments. Do you know what I mean?
How, well, I mean, like, let me ask you this. Like, how many Argento movies have you actually seen? Because, you know, based on, like, our conversations and, like, the old podcast, it seemed like, you know, when we did cover movies that were Argento, it was almost like you had that was you watching them for the first time for at least the three out of four that we covered. So
no, Suspiria I had seen a long time.
No,
before.
obviously Suspiria you had seen a lot of, like, many times before, but the other three.
But I hadn't seen Deep Red, I hadn't seen Tenebrae, and I hadn't seen Inferno. But I'd seen Phenomena, I've seen Opera.
Yeah.
I just had them in my. I can't ask what. What shit? Because there's another one, but I can't remember the name of it, and I can't. The only thing I remember about it is a spoiler, so I can't ask you what about that one. But there's one that I saw that I don't remember the name of it. I never remember the name of it. But the most significant thing I remember about it is a huge spoiler. No. Anyway, I think I've seen at least
Cat o'
5.
Nine Tails.
No, it wasn't that.
Bird with the Crystal
I've seen at least
Plumage?
5.
Okay. Well, all I'm saying is, like, Suspiria is kind of, like, overboard. Like, I wouldn't say that, like, if you're using Suspiria as the basis for, like, Argento style, like, that, like, he threw, like, everything, including the kitchen sink, into that one. So, just in terms of, like, visually and sonically, like, Suspiria is on a whole different level from everything else, but Tenebrae is more in line with, like, you know, what I would expect from his visual style, because Suspiria, not that Tenebrae doesn't, but, like, Suspiria, you know, is very colorful, and just in terms of lights and primary colors, and obviously, like, the Goblin score in that movie adds to it as well. And Goblin scores this as well, although they're not called Goblin because the fourth member wasn't included. I don't know what the story was there. I didn't do enough research to remember, but the score in this movie is also very iconic and memorable as well. So I think that just in terms of his style, more so just in the way of, like, his creativity. And I think, you know, there are certain things that he does, like, every time you see the killer's hands in these movies, that's always Argento. He's like, people don't know how to do it. Like, he always, you know, he'll have the gloved hands, and he'll, like, pick up a knife or a razor blade or an axe or whatever it is. He has to be the one to do it. So there's, you know, things like that. And just in terms of, like, how color is used in this movie, because everything is very neutral in terms of the settings and the backgrounds and everything. But then there's all these, like, pops of color, whether that be in the clothing that people wear, or just, like, the geysers of blood that come shooting out of severed appendages that then, like, paint these kind of barren neutral walls to be bright red. So it's like this invasion of color, whereas Suspiria is, like, already, like, it is the color, you know?
Yeah, it's much more saturated, and even was back when I was watching, like, DVDs with, like, a lower kind of, like, you know, grade, you know, of visual quality, shall we say? But yeah, so like I said, I think that's just me kind of taking something that I really responded to, and because when I think about all those other Argento films, they don't look like that, and that's why it made me feel like, okay, so trademark. I think I think it's accurate to call it Argento's trademark visual style, but at the same time, there's something about that wonderful strategically placed choral pop throughout this movie, whether it's on a lady's lips, or whether it's in the flowers that are, you know, sitting, like, against a wall, or whether it's in a pair of shoes that someone's wearing. That sometimes what drives me insane in a great way is sometimes I wonder if I'm just colorblind, which I know I am a little bit with blue and green. So I just wonder sometimes if I'm seeing coral or if I'm seeing red. And sometimes I feel like I'm seeing both in certain shots. And I can't tell if that's the lighting. I can't tell if that's just, like, the same way indigo can look like both purple and blue at the same time.
I mean, there's definitely both
color.
colors here because I was watching it on 4K, which looks amazing, by the way. But you definitely have those bright reds. There's coral. There's pink. There's like everything, but it's just kind of like patterned into different places. So it's definitely like it gives this movie a unique feel, and also like this has a very different look from most of Argento's movies, because I feel like at this point in his career, like before 1982 when this was made, most of his movies were like, you know, he shoots all of his movies predominantly in Rome, or they take place in Rome. Suspiria is an exception to that, but he always like shows different places in the city, so it's just like nothing ever looks the same. Or if you were to watch the movie, it's almost like it's like a surreal sort of painting, because you can look at it and nothing like looks familiar to anything that you've seen before. And in this movie, it has a very modernistic, almost futuristic look to it. And apparently, like, this is in Argento's own headcanon. That's not anywhere in the movie, but he states that this movie actually takes place in the future after some big apocalyptic event, and these are like the people who are still alive afterwards and like rebuilt society or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like he's got like he's, you know, marches to the beat of his own drum. He's like on a completely different level of storytelling and filmmaking. But that would explain why this does have a very unique feel, because like this Rome is obviously such an old city, you know. It's and you know, if you watch movies like Deep Red, you see in that, like, you know, it has a more archaic look to it, whereas this movie, everything does feel very much of its, I mean, like modern, but like modern 80s,
right,
which I like,
of its time.
Yeah
I agree with that. I also feel like, I mean, oftentimes, like, especially with the way the women are shot and everything like that, I could be watching some kind of ad for perfume or something like that. I don't know. Just I mean, because also he catches them in these coy ways. And I mean, it's not uncommon, particularly for a male filmmaker of this particular period, to be depicting women as symbols, or, you know, like, it always reveals more about the filmmaker than it does about women, I think, you know, by and large. And something about, I mean, the first significant woman I feel like we're introduced to is Elsa. And just because of the how can I put, I don't want to spoil anything, but just like the time she spends on screen is varied, and I don't feel like I walk away from this movie knowing any more about her than I did in the first frame that she occupies. She is a mystery, and I think a lot of the women in this movie, even if I feel like I know them, a lot of them are, there's a mysterious quality. I can only suppose what they might be thinking, or what they might, what they might be loyal to, or, you know, like that kind of thing. It's
I mean, like, I think for the most part, like, most of the characters in this movie, I'd say, like, maybe with the exception of the lead, played by Anthony Franciosa, playing Peter Neal, the author, and probably his agent, Bulmer, played by John Saxon, who's always a welcome addition to anything horror. To see, who, you know, obviously played Nancy's dad in Nightmare on Elm Street, and also the police sergeant in Black Christmas. So he's a genre vet. And, you know, I think other than those two characters, everyone else in the movie is kind of, they're just there. They just occupy space. This is not a character-driven movie at all, by any means. No. It's just plot happening. And incidentally, like, there's a lot of women who are here because there needs to be a lot of fodder for the kill count, and that's mostly what they show up to do, is just, like, you know, be attractive and get killed. And that is in itself is a trademark of Dario Argento, of just murdering beautiful women on screen. And there's even a line, to get more meta here, just in terms of how Tenebrae is the Italian Scream, because there's a line that Tilda, the journalist who's at the press conference earlier on, says to Peter, Tenebrae is a sexist novel. Why do you despise women so much? And that was in the script because Argento has been accused in the past of being sexist and objectifying women. So this movie really is sort of like his answer to that, and just being like, yeah, I do that for my art, and you can like it or not, but this is what it is. So,
but it's interesting because I can see how through his eye he feels like he's loving women while he's making these movies, but I can also see the other side of the argument. How, I mean, I'm not a woman and I don't identify as one, but but I could understand if a woman saw this movie and just said, I don't need to see anymore, I'm fine. I've seen it. I've seen this. I get it. We're symbols. We're seductresses when we're young, and we're, and then we're victims. But I don't know. There's something about it that there's, dare I say it, a playful quality that doesn't threaten me. And also because it is so non-character driven all across the board, I don't really get to know anybody in this movie. I think there is an odd equality about it, because it's not really about the men either. It's really just about fill in the blank. You tell me. This is my third and a half time watching it, and I still feel like I don't understand, and we'll get into more of that with spoilers later.
What is there to understand? I think that maybe that's more so just in the nature, because it is a murder mystery, and there are a lot of blank slates here that you have to kind of fill in the pieces for, and it's not dominated by men or women. I mean, if anything, it's right. More dominated by women, because there's more women in this movie than there are men, and they take up a lot of the screen time, and they also have arguably the better death scenes, or even scenes in general. Also, while we're on the topic of murders, because I think that we've talked about movies before where just in terms of pacing issues, and another thing that's so great about this is it's very well paced. There's murders all throughout the movie. There aren't any lulls here. And I feel that with every single kill, each one is so different from the last. There's so much diversity in every kill scene that it's there's so much to take out of this. It's not boring. There's not just basic scream, just stab and kill, move on, something else. It's every kill in the movie, for the most part, is on par with something unique that you would see. We talked about Halloween 2018 last week, and how you loved all the kills in that movie. I feel I love all the kills in this movie. Each one of them stands out to me.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't necessarily share your opinion, but because one of the second
what
line
didn't
that I
stand
read
out
in
to
this. No, hold on one second. Because the second line, because you mentioned something else that I want to address too. Yeah. That is also kind of addressed here in the synopsis that I read. The second part of the sentence is linked with one of his more coherent plots, which I did not find at all. And that's not a criticism. I love the incoherency of it, because for me, it does literally feel kind of like we're jumping from story to story. And yes, there is a through line. There is one character who we kind of follow, who everybody seems to follow through this movie. But that said, I feel like I keep finding myself in strangers' homes, and it's done in such a way that feels so distinctly European to me. Because it is charming. It doesn't feel like, I don't even know this bitch, why am I spending time with her? It's more like, oh, so now we're going to follow Maria, It's going to be her movie for the next however more, minutes we have. And that kind of thing. Like, and
I mean, but like, how is that any different than, say, like a Scream movie? Like, say, like, we're going to hang out with Sarah Michelle Gellar for the next 7 minutes,
Right. I got to say, like, I think I said in that pod, that's not one of my particular favorite sequences of that movie. But, I mean, I like the work that was done there, but could have done more. With this movie, I don't know what notes I would have. Like, the only notes I have for the kills are for, like, odd choices the victims make that, again, I just wonder, is that just European? Like, is that just, but the moment, like this, the moment must happen. So of course she's going to stay in, I'm not going to name names, but of course this character is going to stay in the domicile where she discovered some crucial evidence, that could incriminate someone. And she's going to call the police from that domicile. She's not going to leave. She's not going to try to get out of there. And the first person who she sees in that particular residence, she's going to ask for help. She's not going to, fuck, and then run, I mean, and it's so stupid that it's hilarious and entertaining, and it just makes me kind of laugh and clap my hands and go, what?
Well, we can talk about that more when we get there. But just in terms of this being, like, you're saying that it's not coherent, versus whatever synopsis you read that said it was one of his more coherent. I think that it is very coherent because when you're looking at it in perspective with Suspiria and Inferno, like any of the more supernatural offerings that Dario Argento had, like those movies don't make any sense. They're a wild ride, but I would argue, like, he bases most of his movies, especially those ones, on more so just nightmares that he had. And as we know, like, dreams don't make sense. There's no end, no beginning. Here I feel that there is, like, everything makes sense by the end. The whole murder mystery and the plot of what's going on is presented to us very clearly, if you're paying attention. Like, there's really no room for error. Just in terms of, like, what characters are doing. I mean, like, that's no different than, like, a character from a Friday the 13th movie doing something stupid and then getting killed. So it's just, like, to me, it's like those movies, but it's an art house Italian version of it.
I think there's something, and I don't want to make this like a Tenebrae versus Suspiria pod, but so this might be the last mention I make of Suspiria, but there's something about the kind of overall, like overarching weirdness of that world, and one outsider that we follow kind of into that world, and everything about being kind of like the secret that must be concealed until it is finally revealed. It's very simple, and in that way more dreamlike, and in that way kind of maybe it's just easier for me to ride the wave in that sense, and as opposed to the torch being passed. Like, again, this isn't like me saying, like, and this is why I don't like it. It's just, it throws me, and maybe the parts of it that make it un-American and unfamiliar are what I have kind of like a hard time making sense of. And maybe the problem is, maybe I don't need to make sense of it. Maybe I just kind of need to ride the wave. But
I mean, I think that's kind of what he sets out for his audience to do, is just kind of ride a wave. There's a 2.5 minute sequence in this movie of just this crane shot. I forget the camera or the technique, but we saw it in Friday the 13th Part 3. So I don't know which movie implemented it first, because those were both 1982. But it's the scene at the beginning in Friday the 13th where the crane shot where they're coming into the convenience store where the couple live. You know their name, Harold and Edna.
I don't remember. Oh God, I can't remember.
Yeah, you know,
yeah.
They first
you know, guys.
Yeah, that they used in this movie, and it was just like one of those things where Argento is like, you know, he had the money. You know, Argento comes from like a background of other filmmakers, so you know, like he's already very wealthy. You know, like he was able to get the money from producers to make these movies, and I think like the more money he had, the better movies he was able to make, because he could implement these techniques, and it was like new at the time, so he'd be like, I'm gonna like do this like crazy crawl up the side of this house over the roof and on the other side of it, which is like which takes up like 2.5 minutes, and that's like, you know, it has no context to anything that's happening in the plot other than showing us that there's a killer outside of the house and they're now breaking into the house. But it's just one of those things, like that's his style. He'll like stop the movie to do something so ridiculous just to be like, you know, I'm a filmmaker, you know, and it's charming. Right. It's like I love
cinema.
It. Yeah,
it's cinema. But no, I also like. There's a lot of wonderful little details that I don't require, but that I feel are telling me something about each one of these characters, because we do spend a lot of time with them in daylight, just kind of having what we might term more pedestrian kind of like exchanges and whatnot, or flirtations, or you know, what have you. But
just people being happy. You know, that's something I noticed too. Like,
kind of.
They're like the his entourage, if you will, just like the the Dario Nicolodi character, and then his like the agent in training. Gianni, who they call Johnny, just Johnny, and this one. But they're like so excited to just be like working, like they just like kiss the ground that he walks on. And they're just like, oh, we're having such a good time. Like they're just big smiles all around in every scene that they're walking through. It's like, this is how Argento just directed them. It's just like, you're just happy to be here right now. You know, you're just loving life. You get the privilege of.
But they'll also match his energy, like at a more serious moment when they're like laying things out and he's sitting there trying to put it together. They're both kneeling on either side of him on the floor, also just kind of like, yeah, it's a real quandary, you know, kind of thing. Like they are his pips, you know, they're his backup dancers. But one thing, like even there, it's I noticed like the minute Peter gets introduced to us, the first thing that we see is him riding a bike to the airport alongside
in the middle of the freeway.
Yeah, right. Alongside his chauffeured car.
Yeah.
And all I could wonder while I was watching it is just like, what is Dario Argento trying to tell me about this person? Like, why is he doing that? Because I almost get like, even though I think this predates Mommy Dearest, but I get like a Mommy Dearest vibe, like when she's like running alongside and Carol Ann's driving the car, just in case, I guess, she falls or decides she wants to stop running and then she can drive her back to the house. I don't know. But
I mean, I think
but
that
also
like
just,
he's...
Yeah.
It's funny that you make that comparison to Mommy Dearest, because I think that Peter Neal is like a big diva in this movie. And I always saw that as just like, you know, he had to get his cycles in, you know, he had to get his steps in. It was a bike. He had to get his cycles in. It's just like, I'm going to no helmet, just like in the middle of the fucking freeway with trucks. And they probably filmed that like on the freeway with actual trucks coming, like zipping by. And he's just got his like bright blue tracksuit. It was just like more like, it's just bougie. He's like, yeah, I'm into health and fitness. And then he like, the chauffeur only came there because he needed someone to take his bike back to his house, or you know, something like that.
Also, like he's the kind of prick who's also just kind of like, well, I mean, I'm going to be sitting on a plane for 6 hours straight. I don't want to get a spare tire. I'd better, get my cycles in.
Yeah.
But so that I mean, I guess at least he's not one of those people who like works out in the airport. Like that's a relief. That really turns me off when people do that. It's like, stop stretching, stop showing off, eat a Cinnabon like the rest of us. Anyway, just a little. It's been a long time since I've been in an airport. I'm very angry. But we get introduced to him, and then we get that incredible exchange, maybe, of a mysterious woman, and you'll have to remind me what she's wearing, but she's got a scarf on her head. Yes. And do we ever see her again?
No.
I don't think so. No. So I wonder, who are you?
She's a red herring. Like, she's just...
A woman we see once and then never see again, and because by the time we get an hour into the movie, I've long forgotten about her, but I don't want to. But yeah,
the last we see, she takes out the cigarette and lights it up as the plane is taking off.
Right.
Yeah. Well, because in that scene,
mystery.
Because still this is pretty early, so it's not spoilers. But he gets a call from his, and this is, I mean, I love this movie. I've seen it countless times. I still have no idea what the relationship is between Peter and this woman. Not the woman with the scarf on her head, but his. It's either his girlfriend, his fiance, his wife. They never really make that expressly clear as to like what their relationship is, but she calls him like at the airport, and he picks up the phone, and we find out that she's at the airport. She's in a phone booth, if you remember what those are, and she's calling him, and he doesn't have time to talk. He doesn't even want to talk to her. It's just like, pissed off, but she was only doing that to distract him, so the lady with the scarf on her head could go and tamper with his bag. And I think, like, in that moment, we don't know what happened to his bag. And we see it, like, because there's a shot when he is on the plane and the camera just kind of drops down to the bag. And it's almost like, is there a bomb in the bag? Like, we don't know, because, like, we see the plane taking off. And Jane, the girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever, she's looking up at the plane. And she's, has this very somber look. But then she, like, starts to slowly smile and put on her sunglasses and walk away. Like, it's all very like suspicious. There's just like people popping in and out of the movie doing weird things that don't get much explanation, but then later on we find out that what happened is that the lady with the scarf on her head just went into the bag, and like it looked like she put like oil on shit and then like broke the watch that was the gift for the mistress, the other lady, his secretary, who he's having an affair with.
But is he? Because, like, okay, because we may get into spoilers at that point, so I don't know. Stop me if I was starting to cross too much. But I feel like to hear, particularly Anne, the way she talks to him about Jane, the mysterious woman on the phone, who needs... it's a crime there's not more of her in this movie. I adore Jane McCarrow. But, because she is just one of those... characters who literally kind of drifts into shots with sunglasses on indoors during the daytime for God knows why, and just so she can be dramatic, like I live, like that's very gay. But Jane, I'm led to believe from the way Anne describes her that she was a very serious relationship, whether it was a marriage or whether it was just a long-term relationship or it was just something that was very intense. I think it lasted a while, though. Jane was kind of like a fixture in his life, enough to know Anne, and for Anne to know her. And I feel like they're exes now, but Jane's having a hard time letting go. That's the impression I got.
Well, during the phone, because we don't hear her talking on the phone, we just hear him, and he says, well, the reason why I haven't talked to you in 6 weeks is... And then he doesn't actually proceed to give the reason. He just says, if you're going to be like that, I'm going to hang up. So, clearly, like, if that is his fiance, it's just like, you haven't talked to her in 6 weeks, like, maybe the wedding's off. I don't know. But this is just another case of just, like, why there isn't a lot of characterization to any of these people, because, like, we don't know anything about them. They just exist in the movie to do what they have to do. Also, you mentioned another thing, just because you talk about how she just kind of she's all over the place indoors and in daylight with her sunglasses on, and it's just to point out that this movie does predominantly take place during the day. This is like there's a lot of daytime horror and killing in this movie. I think like probably like 80% of the kills are in the daytime. Maybe that number's wrong, but it just enough of them are probably half and half of just daytime kills, which again goes back to the title of the movie, Tenebrae, which is like the Latin meaning of darkness, which this movie could be anything but, because even when it is nighttime, they're indoors in these like brightly lit sets, or not sets, but like actual practical locations, and just like beautiful, like the architecture and like the houses that they have in this movie as well, like they just really stand out. Like that's that's why it's so gay. It's just like it hits every gay interest that there possibly is.
And even the flashbacks take place, like, you know, in beach settings or at least outdoors, like in bright, sunny days with a lot of sexually charged, you know, imagery. And
if we're going to talk about the flashbacks here, we may as well start getting into spoiler territory. So,
okay.
Was there any other non-spoiler stuff that you wanted to mention?
No.
Okay,
I mean, I don't...
Okay, because speaking of gay, the flashbacks, which depict a woman who is actually played by a trans woman, and 4 men who are engaging in what I can only imagine is an orgy on the beach. That's how it starts out. And one of these men is the killer, and because we see the flashbacks of them, you know, reliving this episode in their life where I guess it was like this vetting thing that she was doing, and she just chose like, okay, like the 3 of you can fuck me on this beach, not so much, I'm not interested.
Doesn't she give him a thumbs down?
I think she gave him a thumbs down. Well, like they all like it's all like these men, they're either shirtless or they've got their like shirts tied in a knot, like Jessica Alba or Biel style from Texas Chainsaw.
Jessica Alba. All right, yes.
I
Biel.
confuse them sometimes.
Jessica, 4 letters that follow. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So and they're just like, you know, crowding around this transgendered woman, and she's kind of like, she's like almost like protective of them, like she's got her arms outstretched, like these are my men, and I think she does give the thumbs down or something, and that's when he strikes her, like slaps her across the face in this very like dramatic like, and then like bloody lip,
way.
and then she kind of looks up at them, and she's almost like gleeful, like she's like go get him, as he's like running away, and they tackle him to the point where she comes over, kicks sand on him, and then proceeds to stick the heel of her stiletto into his mouth. This very phallic imagery. The whole thing is so gay. It's like the gayest thing in the movie, which just makes me think like I think the killer is gay. Like there's some sort of like repressed. There's like a lot of themes of like repression and humiliation and whatnot in here. That I think okay. Well, and since we are spoiling it, there are 2 killers in this movie.
Yes, there were.
There are 2 killers in this movie, and I think both of them are gay. I'm not even gonna.
Well, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make your case, sir. I'm interested.
Okay. Well, definitely. Okay. Well, the 2 killers, the main killer, as it were, is Peter Neal, who's the main character. He's the writer. The other killer is the character played by John Steiner, who, sidebar, just passed away at the end of last month in a car accident. He was killed in a car wreck, and because I was watching the special features. He did an interview on the 4K I was watching. And because he was very famous for playing villain roles in Italian cinema. This British actor, he was in all these movies. Like, he was never a big name in North America, but like he was huge in Italy. And that was kind of that, you know, where he made a name for himself until he retired or moved to the U.S. and then worked as a real estate agent. And he was living in Palm Springs up until his death. And like literally just not even a month ago. Or like the time of listening to this, just over a month ago. But that was very sad to hear. But he's kind of like, I love like his portrayal in this, because he kind of reminds me of like Stewie from Family Guy. Like, do you see it?
I mean,
just that gleeful like Britishness, like so gay.
I mean, yeah, that like that wickedness, that kind of like innate snarl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Just
think so.
that
Yeah, sure.
affectation, and he's speaking. He's just like,
Yeah.
oh, Tenebrae is about abhorrent behavior and homosexuals, and like, so that's why I think he's gay, because I mean, like, he's just like super gay as it is, but also
You
just
think
the
he's
fact that
he's a self-loathing closet
yeah,
case.
yeah, because he's like, hates the book, or like, I don't know if because he idolizes Peter, he's obsessed with Peter. So I think like secretly, like if he knew that Peter was also a murderer, because that's the thing, like they're both killers but they're not working in tandem. No. The character Cristiano Berti that John Steiner plays, he's the one that's initially killing people. Peter Neal figures it out because he's a crime novelist, so in his own like brain figured out who the killer was halfway through the movie, killed the killer, and then assumed the killer's murder spree by killing the people who had wronged him or who had humiliated him, so then he can sort of like pass it off and just be like, oh, it was this killer, and he would get away with it because he had alibis while the other murders were happening. So I think that maybe if killer number one knew that killer number two was also a killer, he would have been like, we can kill together. There almost is a scene at the beginning when he's on the phone and because he's talking to him and he's just like, you wrote these words, like, that's, so maybe there was a part of him that kind of wanted to just be gay and killing people together.
Well, I mean, also that's I mean, I think there's actually something to that, because I mean, if you are someone who has those kinds of inclinations and that kind of self-loathing, and you want to get close to somebody who is writing something that you can tell yourself is for you, because you understand the motives of the killer, like wiping out homosexuality as an abomination and everything like that, and yet you still get to kind of honor it in yourself. Like, it's that's why I didn't think, particularly in the flashbacks, it didn't strike me as particularly gay so much as just toxically masculine, because it made me think about how men, regardless of their sexual identity or orientation or whatever, what have you, state, their their identity. It's just about how fragile masculinity in and of itself can be if you imbue like the exchanges you have with the people you're interested in with your own self-worth, and if their rejection means you're nothing, so now you'll show them all of that bullshit.
Yeah, definitely. It
like
definitely represents that, but I feel like, again, like masculinity doesn't have a sexual orientation, and I just see like him, like Peter Neal went out and bought the same shoes that he was assaulted with on that beach, the same exact shoes, and gifted it to his ex-girlfriend, pretending to be her lover, John Saxon. So it's just like, he's just like, oh, like, she'll love these shoes. Like, I'm gonna buy shoes. Like, that's just like any gay killer being like, that's my calling card. I'm gonna buy them shoes.
Also, just
like bright red shoes.
Or coral, depending on the light.
It was red. It's bright.
Those were the red ones. I think you're right. Those were the red ones. But like a very, I don't know, a very rosy, pinky cherry. Anyway, not cherry, but you know what I mean. No, but because that's another thing that's where I get the gay. Actually, is just kind of like all the soap opera melodrama out of nowhere, because like we find out that frickin' Jane is having an affair with what's his name?
Bulmer.
Bulmer. I always want to call him Goldman. Anyway, Goldman. But with Bulmer, who's played by John Saxon. So we find out she's, or not an affair, I guess, but I mean, they're keeping it secret and they don't want Peter to know. Yeah. But is she still hung up on Peter? And yet, when did the affair start with Bulmer? And what does this mean? Like, is she? I mean, all of it's fraught with all of these questions that I feel like would be answered if this were a soap opera and not a movie. But
I feel that's the beauty of it, because it's just like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's just like window dressing. And I think if I had to psychologically break down this character of Jane, I'd say that she is hung up on Peter. I don't think that she has any like vendetta or like she's not trying to get revenge on him or anything. I think that she genuinely wants him back. She's stalking him. She's followed him out to. That's the thing. Like everyone is obsessed with Peter. Like everyone is like stalking him or killing for him or whatnot. I think that she's having this affair with John Saxon's character just to remain close to his inner circle. Because she displays guilt because like when Peter's in the office of John Saxon's character and then he leaves and John Saxon goes to like the secret panel behind the wall and Jane comes out and she's disgusted with herself. She's disappointed. She's like, I feel so sleazy. And then he's like, are we still on for lunch? And she's like, yeah. Like just think about it.
I think she is a narcissist and Peter is just kind of like the thing that got away. So she can't be rejected. So of course she's obsessed with him. But I feel like the second he came running back or even kind of like slept with her one last time or whatever, and then all of a sudden was all in, she'd be over it, and then that's when she would tell him she's been having an affair with Bowler the whole time.
I think that, there's also the scene, there's also that really like great moment, which is like basically towards the end of the movie, like right before her kill, where she's on the phone with Daria Nicolodi's, and she's like, help me, like I don't want to kill myself, or like she's like threatening suicide. But then she's telling Anne where she is to come find her, and Anne hangs up. She's like, "I'll be right round," is what Anne says. And then, by the way, this is not Daria Nicolodi's voice in the movie.
No,
it's the voice over is done by Teresa Russell, who played Denise Richards' mom in Wild Things. So every time I see Wild Things now, that character comes on screen, and anytime she talks, I just see Daria Nicolodi and Tenebrae. It's like, if you watch Wild Things, like you'll hear, like if you're familiar with Tenebrae, just be like, it's Daria, it's Anne. But no, anyway, so Anne's on the phone, and she's like, I'll be right round, and hangs up, and she's still on the phone, she's holding it up, and she's like, save me from myself, or like whatever. She has this like evil like laugh that she does. So I think maybe like she was actually planning on killing Anne like that because she had the gun. Maybe. So Anne was like going to come to the house and she was going to shoot Anne because Peter was in love with Anne or whatever. More like telenovela, like soap opera bullshit. So it was almost like this is a horror movie like inside of a soap opera, but it's like the horror movie took over and all of like the soap opera elements like ceased to be important. So really like Peter coming in at the last minute and chopping off Jane's hand and hacking her to pieces, like he saved Anne's life, I guess, in a way.
I think there's definitely an argument to be made in favor of that. That said, we're talking about all my favorite things right now, but so let's bring up one thing that isn't one of my favorite things, even though I adore Daria Nicolodi, I do. Yeah. But the whole, because I remember I must have checked out the first time I saw this movie, and then just assumed because of the familiarity of the two of them that Anne and Peter were married for some reason.
Your typical thing where because straight people who commingle
if there's
have
a man
to be...
and there's a woman and they're bland enough to kind of like be the central couple, they just are, they're married.
That's what her name should have been. Bland. It's like what's her face on Arrested Development.
Oh my gosh, just Bland. Or
Mae Whitman's character just like
just put a ch at the end of it, just Bland. That could be her name, Blanche. But watching it again, it was very, very clear. Like the killer obviously thought she was his girlfriend, but what does the killer know? Well, he was on the phone with him, and looking at the hotel room before
killer number one,
before Detective Altieri pulled her out of the frame. Oh, I loved that, and then like stepped in place just so she could do her detective.
Well, that was
work.
already. That was almost setting up already kind of the switcheroo with them from the beginning, because like later on in the movie, when we think that it's Anne who's entered the house, but it's actually the detective, and he kills her, and it's almost like because he didn't want to kill her, but then realized when the real Anne came in that he killed the wrong one. So I love that like already early setup of the case of mistaken identity. There's another thing that kind of like, I guess like you can call that foreshadowing, where earlier on John Saxon's character, his trademark is he's got one of those bowler hats, and Peter like comments on it. He's just like, what's with this? And he's like, oh, it's a new look. And he's just like, aren't you afraid it's gonna drop off? And he's like, drop off? And he's like, no. And he does that, and it doesn't fall off. But then later when Peter kills him, the first thing that you see is the hat flying off of his head. So like little touches like that, like I love that.
And there's even more of a little precedent set because it's established that that'll stick on his head, and it's so memorable visually that later when they're in the studio, I believe, he's taken his hat off and he's set it down on, I think like some kind of
like a trolley,
like a cart on wheels or something, and somebody almost makes off with his head. It's like, oh wait, my hat, and I'm like, oh, I thought you couldn't lose it. So it made me think like nothing is reliable in this world.
Yeah.
But but back to Anne and Peter. The one thing that really defined their relationship for me, I don't think that because I mean she says it, because they're finally, I can't remember if he's staying at her place or she's staying at his. I think she's staying at his.
Well, it's his
and
hotel
they make
room.
that comment. Yeah, and they make that comment about like, is it 6 years they say or something like that? However long they've been together. Did I write? I did. I wrote it down.
Yeah,
6
they worked
years.
6 years.
Yeah, and this is the first time that she's going to like spend the night with him or something like that. Doesn't mean they couldn't fuck during the day, but but it tells me like there isn't in a sense like a kind of, but she's his gal Friday, and you can tell she knows him better than he knows himself, and like even that little exchange they have when she's in the bathroom and it says, oh, you poor thing, your pillows aren't soft enough. He's like, the pillows aren't soft enough, and she's like, oh, I'll get softer, or whatever she says. And
Yeah,
you know better
she's like,
than
I meant to. No, well, no, because she's almost like mocking him, like in a way, or not like mocking, but she's just like, oh, because he's like, I didn't sleep very well. It's just, and she walked into the other room. She was like in the kitchen as he was like talking to her from the other room, and she's like, oh, you poor thing. Like he couldn't hear her. He's like, you poor thing.
Yes.
Like you couldn't sleep well. I'll get you a feather pillow. And then he's like,
right.
I didn't sleep well. And she's like, I'll get you a feather pillow. I meant to.
Which tells me everything I need to know about her end of the relationship.
She's basically just the secretary. Like she's pointless.
The
like
the through and through girl.
But also as you described, like the final girl by default. And if there was ever an example of a final girl by default, it is Daria Nicolodi in this movie, because literally every character in this movie gets killed except for her. And at the end, it's like she's even going to, like, he's going to kill her, I guess, like just to tie up loose ends. And the only reason that he gets killed is because the sculpture gets wedged in the door and she's trying to get in the door. And you see he gets hoisted by his own petard because she had no idea that, like, what she was doing by opening the door was going to cause that sculpture, that like spike, to like dart out into his abdomen and pin him against the wall in that final moment of just so iconic of him just like writhing, like pinned up against that wall, as just like blood is rushing out and she's just in the rain screaming her lungs out. It's such an iconic end. Like that's how you end a movie. There's nothing, we don't need an afterwards. We don't need to see her get taken away in an ambulance being like, where's Paul?
Right.
Like, where's Peter?
No, end of movie. But the most visceral thing about that moment to me also, and aside from her screaming, because the screaming is, oh my God, but it's also just watching his hands as he tries to pull that part of the sculpture out of him.
Yeah.
Just watching his hands slide, because I don't know, something about metal and like sliding and like the potential of like creating like cuts on hands. I don't know. It just bothers me. Oh, it just bothers me. Oh God.
Okay, calm down.
I'm sorry. Anyway,
it's all good.
but it gets to me like just watching it because I think we hold on it at least twice, maybe 3 times, and every time
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, Dario, what are you doing to me? Stop. But
I love it.
It works. It's very effective.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's great. It's absolutely great.
All the because even like right before that, when the other detective gets killed, and they have that the shot, which is another iconic moment where he's standing directly behind him and we don't see him. I think we see like part of his ear, but then he bends down to pick up the thing or whatever, and then we see it's like a jump scare. It's like the fucking like 80s version of the jump scare, which is done so well. And then like I think like Brian De Palma ripped it off in one of his movies, but it's as he's been known to do, I think. But like that kill, the one that comes right after, like every death in this movie is spectacular. Do you actually have a favorite kill?
Oh God, favorite. See, I'm not one who does favorites.
I'm gonna
if
say
we keep talking
for
about
me,
them, it'll happen. But yeah,
I'm gonna say for me it's Tilda's, just because that's like the one of the posters for the movie. I know I have like a Japanese poster of the movie of just like kind of like her face, like it's just like this gaze through this like torn fabric of just like her looking at the killer, and what it is she's trying to put on a sweater, and the killer takes the razor blade and swipes at her first, and it like cuts this like a hole in the sweater, so she's like momentarily like staring at the face of the killer, and then he swipes at her again and kills her. So it's like almost like this like double swipe, but just like seeing just like the imagery of the face through the torn fabric, and then death, and then like her bloody hand like up against the wall, and then smashing the vase or whatever it was. But also, I mean, you can't discount the Jane kill with the severed forearm, and just like the blood, just like how it just like so elegantly sprays the wall in that one shot. Like that was amazing. Like that's the thing. Like, you know, when I think of like a movie with iconic kills, like it's this one, because like every single kill in this movie, it stands out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the one that had the most effect on me. They all affected me in different ways, but the one that, you know, got me like my skin crawling is the one I just described with the art piece and the hands just sliding on metal. Oh, fuck it. Anyway, but it's not even the kill, but I think it's the discovery of the kill and what happens to the dead body with Altieri. In the case of mistaken identity, because when Peter gets on the floor and flips her body over, he whips her around. And I have to commend the actress who played Detective Altieri, because that is hard to do, to lay still and have somebody manhandle you with that much force that quickly. And for you to just go ragdoll and not like blink and not move your eyes and just leave your mouth agape, just like full, just like absolute trust in the other actor, and he's not taking all that much special care with her. So that was something that stood out to me.
I liked how the detective Germani, the male detective, who throughout the entire movie is like his whole shtick with his partner Altieri is like he's emasculates her and is always like, you know, just like, if I had a tough male assistant, like, you know, like
who runs fast,
like be able to keep up with me. That I think it's ironic and hilarious that like when he gets killed, when he gets the axe in the back, his death is him falling over, but then like spinning around with his head falling directly in between her legs, like up her skirt. And it just makes me, because like in Italian culture, you know, there's certain taboos with, well, shall we say, like cunnilingus. So it's almost like that was like his way of being emasculated one last time to die in that position with his head between her legs. Yeah. I
mean, it sucks that has to equal emasculation, but but good for that character. I mean, even though Germani, this is the thing about Germani, like he's a watchable character. I think he's a watchable actor. is the thing. Like I like watching him work. I don't know. Again,
Well,
I
the
don't
thing
know
is, like,
terribly all that much about
the
Captain
voices in the movie aren't
Yeah.
actually the real actors. So another thing to keep in mind.
But I mean, just as far as like visual interest he creates on screen, because he's a little pretty, but also he's another one who, like, I don't learn enough about him to like him or dislike him. I'm just kind of but I mean, again, that's the thing. Nothing is put in the movie to really sway me one way or the other. It's just kind of like eavesdropping or just learning about someone once you've met them, and the little details, like you find out he drinks on the job.
He only drinks on the job. I think it's interesting that you bring up the word eavesdropping, because I think like a theme of this movie is definitely voyeurism.
Yeah, totally.
So it totally goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah. And okay. Question, because we haven't talked much about this particular coupling, but okay, because the context I feel is pretty well spelled out for Anne and Peter, just to put that to bed, like, because we haven't spent the night together, and it seems kind of innocent, and then when he kisses her, it feels like a first kiss, and like something they both wanted for a long time. So that's where that is.
It's very awkward, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like early stages, like but we feel this way. Let's do something about it.
Oh yeah, just get off the screen already. They suck.
Exactly.
Remember when she like came into the room? She was wearing like this, like, she basically looked like a Christmas present. Like she had this like gold, like, I don't know like what it was, but like with like a red like thing tied on. Yeah.
Again, I mean, the runway. There should be a Tenebrae runway where they just do fashions from this.
The Tenebrae.
The Tenebrunway.
Tenebrae.
Yes, let's make it happen. But but the couple that I have couple question mark, because I don't understand Maria and Johnny, because it looks like they're meeting for the first time when they first meet in the movie, but then the way they want to like hang out, and the way he chases her out the door at the last second of the scene. You don't do that with somebody you just met, or maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe it's European. I don't know. But I feel like they met before. They definitely had at least flirtations, but they didn't want other. It's almost like that thing, like, oh, let's make believe we're meeting each other for the first time in front of the adults, kind of thing. And now that we're free, Now, the next time we see Maria, she is seated on the back of that motorcycle. Or is she even seated? I don't even remember. But she's with that guy on the motorcycle. They're having a fight, obviously. I didn't get a good enough look at him. Is he supposed to be Johnny abandoning her in the street at night?
Well, because there's that scene of them in the hotel where he's like, okay, do you need anything else today? And they're like, no, you can go. And that's when he's like, because he's like, oh, I'll come with you. And then when Anne goes downstairs, that's them taking off on the motorcycle, and they're like, bye. And but then that's like the next scene cuts to, it's like way later on at night, and that's where he abandons her, and like all she says is like, what's wrong with, like, why don't you speak to me? He doesn't say anything. She's like, go fuck yourself, and she does one of the like spits. It's just very very European, and that's when she gets attacked by the rabid dog or whatever.
Okay, but attacked is
chased.
A loose term. Yeah, I mean,
well, she provoked it first, and then
but with dogs like that though, ironically enough, if she would have just stood still, the dog just would have run right past her.
Maybe
because they're trained to only attack things that they're pursuing. If you stand perfectly still and don't do anything more to provoke them, they will not know what to do with you.
She didn't know.
No, she didn't. I mean, and I was chased by a.
But anyway,
in terms, by a Rottweiler once too.
In terms of that couple, I just assumed that maybe there was like a scene that was cut out. There is a very noticeable cut in the movie when the detectives are talking to John Saxon. When they're walking down the hallway. It's very obvious, but I just assume that there must be deleted footage floating around somewhere out there that just has more character moments, or maybe Argento just didn't give a shit at all, and it was just like, he's like, okay, I just need to kill people, and for some I'll just add make them a couple or something and have them
Yeah, yeah.
in the
I'll
middle
just make
of
them a
nowhere.
couple,
Because
and then
he
they'll
doesn't
fight
seem
because
to
young
be-
people, when they're in love, they fight.
Yeah, like because he doesn't seem to be very affected by finding out that she gets murdered later.
No.
Like he is almost like, oh yeah, we get to investigate. Like he's having the time of his life. When they're like sneaking onto the property where she was supposedly murdered. So it's it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Like they're just characters got a character. And just in terms of like any couple, I think that I would say that the most defined couple in this entire movie are Tilda and her girlfriend, who you quoted at the beginning.
Yes.
Because just like we have everything we need to know about them, and there's like so much, like there's so much more. The lesbian couple, they oddly again gay movie. The lesbian couple has the most defined relationship out of anyone. So,
but largely lesbians written by men, you can tell, because one of the lesbians in the relationship just can't get enough of that dick. But
yeah.
and loves pushing it in the face of her lover.
And not only that, but I love how like when they're at the bar, this girl cannot like keep her clothing, like there's so many nip slips in that one shot. Just like if you play a drinking game for like how many times, what's the character's name?
I don't remember.
I never caught her. Yeah, but it's just like she's like the main poster for the movie. Like that's her, like the head tilted back with like the cut on the throat. But yeah, she's like in that scene. It's just like she's like, hey, he's cute, and then like all of a sudden like nip slip, and then she like turns around and she's like. It's like, you don't have to rub my face in. It's like, not your face, not tonight. And then, like, nip slip.
Is it Marion?
Maybe.
That's like the only female. The rest of them are all, like, prostitute and other women names that I know aren't hers. Like, I know Elsa's the first girl, who I still want to talk about. And Anne and everything. So I guess it's Marion. Let's say it's Marion.
Yeah, it's Marion. Yeah. Tilda.
Okay, cool.
Tilda
and Marion. But that's another thing. Like, okay, Tilda, because I can respect that it's like your favorite kill and everything. That said, folks, if you're in your bedroom and you're pulling a shirt over your head, or even before, let's put it this way, before you change your shirt, if you walk into a room and you hear a whispered voice that says, "Perfect," don't change your shirt. Don't take a long time getting your new shirt all around
your head. And he says head. Pervert, filthy, slimy pervert.
I mean, he says a few things, right? You got plenty.
She's like looking. She's like, that's weird. And she had the pair of scissors too. She just like threw them on the bed. She could have defended herself.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's
maybe
really
she thought it was Marion who was like coming down for one last. By the way, you're a pervert.
I would have loved if she would have talked back to her, just like, "Shut up, Marion," and just pulled her shirt on.
Yeah.
That would have made all the difference.
Because she does do it. She's like, "Turn it down." More meta-ness of just like Marion playing the theme song to the movie in the movie.
I love that.
That
was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, that was amazing. Also, Tilda, just in terms of, she's another character who again like gets introduced, and it's like a switch flips, because we see her kind of arm in arm with Peter, and she seems all buddy and really genuinely happy to see him, and he's genuinely happy to see her. And they're like, oh my gosh, two friends, like whatever. Then the next scene is the one that you mentioned, where she's sitting there just saying like, why do you hate women? And she's just nailing him hard, and
but
in
he
front
even
of other
says,
people too.
yeah, he even says, he's just like, what's going on? Like, you've known me for so. He's just like, I'm not talking about you. I'm in your work.
Right.
So I think it was just, she was just being, a journalist. She was just, trying to do the thing. And then like the comment that Bulmer says afterwards, where he's just like,
oh God,
they want you by the balls. So I think it's just, men like Dario Argento writing women and gay women as the way that he's, but it's like he's like answering the questions like, why do you despise women so much? It's just like, I just like seeing them get killed.
Right. I just don't write them all that terribly well, but I don't write them any better than the men either. So, who would you say in this movie is kind of
written to like, you know, I'm showing or getting you to show your hand for the cherry on top too soon, but like, who would you say is like the least problematic, or, you know, just like the character who's written to just, you know, be the most virtuous, we'll say, like the least shitty person.
Oh, Jesus, that is a question.
Yeah, because I mean, like, it's not like this is like single white female where everyone sucks. Like, there's like,
no,
you know, I
like Anne's a sweetie,
I guess, but I mean, like, she's also boring as sin. So,
but like virtuous is very specific. Like Elsa for sure isn't.
Yeah.
But I don't really blame her. I blame the male writing. Maria. I mean, okay. Maria doesn't seem to be all that vindictively written, even when she's like telling him to go fuck himself. We don't know what the fuck he said, so there's that. But even like her, she's not flirtatious. Like I don't see a young girl like a Lolita.
Because when she like pushes past Peter, when she like, you know, rubs up against him.
Yeah, I feel like she's playing it, and maybe she was directed to play it this way.
Because he makes that joke after when Anne comes in, and he's just like, "What's going on?" She's like, "That's jailbait," you know.
Yeah, right. But I think she's doing it and supposed to like not be conscious of the fact that she's doing it. Yeah. And that's
she's supposed to be like a 16-year-old girl or something. Like that's what they said. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, when I was 16, I had sexual ideas, but anyway, and impulses, but. That's a whole other story. But this one,
so poor Maria. She's the
poor Maria. I think
nicest,
she's in it. She's the one who I was mentioning earlier in the non-spoilery section, who is innocent, shall we say, enough to assume that just because she has her pockets stuffed with the crucial evidence that completely exposes the fact that the killer is here. This is their like bat cave, as it were. And she's going upstairs really, really slowly, picking up the phone and calling the police in the same exact residence. And then when she sees a person behind her, it's just kind of like, "Oh, can you help me?" It's like, no, darling, that's the killer you're talking to right now. And you've got the evidence sticking out of your pockets. What are you doing? Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we could all attribute that to, if not a virtue, it's certainly like an innocence and, you know,
naivete,
to the point to the point of stupidity. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you also have to remember the dog was outside still, ready to pounce on her. So I think it was just like,
go out the other door. Go out the front door.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like the dog was. I mean, that would have been hilarious if the dog also like started to like chase after like her and the killer in that scene. You just see like the dog like prancing around.
That'd be great. Yeah. See, it's a bit. I love it.
Yeah.
But
what you were talking about Elsa?
Okay, so Elsa, because I love the fact that we get introduced to her and she seems significant, just because of the way she's shot. Yeah. Like, you know, she's occupying the screen and it's just kind of like.
Elsa is like the Drew Barrymore of, you know, the scream of Tenebrae.
To create another parallel.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. Because, you know what, I honestly did think she was going to figure more into the story the first time I saw it. So that, you know, there's something to that. But I love the fact that she shoplifts the book, which seems to tie her into, you know, the main action of the movie thus far. Yeah. But also the fact that the store manager basically assaults her, like is full on handling her. Couldn't do that in the States now, but I don't know if you could do it in Italy now. Maybe, I don't know. But she, I mean, it is like full on, like, you're not getting away, and it's probably leaving a
hey,
mark.
What is this?
Yeah, right.
I don't know if that's her real voice, but it was perfect.
It was great.
What she said, yeah.
But then he gets her into the back of his office after their little, you know, this is bullshit exchange or whatever. And then she immediately kind of like goes into the seductive mode to try and get out of it.
She bends over the desk
and writes down her
she had her like finger. She was like, "Come on!"
Oh my god! Yeah, and
she's like, "You're not gay, are you?"
I know. And there you go. More gay. More gay.
And he probably was too, because he's just like, "Where do you live? I have to prove that I am not gay."
I will take this address and then I will send the police your way. I don't know why I'm Dracula.
Well, no, the
now,
thing that I
anyway.
thought was the funniest about that is that after she gives him the address, he takes the book and he like puts it in her bag and sends her off on her merry way. So the whole thing that like the whole reason that you pulled her into the office, was that him buying sex from her?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was her selling.
Yeah.
But then because it sets up this other thing of just kind of like this that it doubles down later, because already I'm going ew with this like predatory manager. Then we get to this dirty predatory homeless man on the street whose whole purpose is to attack her and then to watch her die and do nothing. He doesn't call the police. He doesn't tell anybody, as far as we know. Maybe nobody listened to him, or maybe he forgot. Maybe he was blacked out. I don't know. But I mean, his whole point is just to make.
He's another scarf head lady. Like he just disappears.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And I just wondered actually if he and the store manager were just red herrings, because we're setting up all these male aggressors, you know, and then this like kind of surreptitious, you know, very low key woman, you know, at the airport. So it's again, is it setting up a world where really early in the movie where you cannot trust anyone, you know? And,
you know what? And she even got like a free ride home from the guy on the back of his motorbike. So you know, maybe she blew him for that too. So you know, she's making her rounds. You know.
I wonder if her neighbor.
I love when she got home. Yeah, because she cracked the window open and she's just like. Oh, and just like, is everything okay? She's like, yes, much better now. Closes the window and then like just goes to take her pants off or her skirt and walk around in her t-shirt.
That was her last human interaction. But but then the fact that she gets killed and then the homeless man is standing there at the window just watching. I mean, you want to talk about voyeurism, but voyeurism without context, and I mean that literally, because I consider context details that clue you into what you're seeing that are sandwiched on either side of what you're seeing. And
it's no Rear Window. But there's also the scene later on, like the John Saxon kill, because he's in the middle of like a very busy plaza and he's watching all these like this like woman getting broken up by her boyfriend. There's a fight going on in the restaurant. There's like this child playing with this ball and like hiding from his mother. So there's like all this shit going on and he's like paying attention. And, you know, it made me think of like when we did the Exorcist podcast, because you were talking about like a similar scene when Ellen Burstyn was in the clinic and there's like these children fighting and stuff. So I think it was just like, it's just a way to, like you said that there was some sort of like symbolism to what was going on, and there very well may be, because like Argento does include this in all of his movies, or at least, you know, at the time there was a lot of that. Like there was definitely moments like that in Deep Red. There was even dogs fighting in that movie as there were in The Exorcist. And both of those movies came out around the same time. So I mean, if anything, I just see it as more just like it's you know, adding life to the overall picture. And it's because I mean, in that scene especially, because like I think the shock of it all is like, you know, you think you're in a very public place in the middle of the day, surrounded by people. Like that's the last place you expect to get stabbed in the gut.
Yes.
I also love how, because we see Jane, we don't see her anywhere from like the ankles up. We just see the shoes. Again, so gay. And she walks over and she sees the dead body and she just turns around and walks. She doesn't even run or anything. She just turns around and walks away. So that makes me think that like she didn't give a shit about Bulmer. She was just, but she knew like something's going on here. I gotta be on the lookout. I wonder if she knew that the shoes were from Peter. Because it was like in his like it was written, so it might have been like his writing.
She would have known. Yeah. I think she absolutely would have known his handwriting. They seemed intimate enough for her to know those kinds of details.
Especially, someone as like obsessive as her, like she like, oh, because she felt like she picked up the shoes and she was like, oh yeah, like, you know, she liked that gift. If it was from Bulmer, she would have been like, pushed it off the counter.
I better take a picture of myself in them and send it to Peter. And he'll wonder who sent her those shoes.
Tenebrae 2022. Let me take a selfie. Yeah.
Right. She would be an influencer for sure, Jane. Just completely consumed with her own image, and like, you know, maybe on the arm of like her latest beau if she thinks he's, you know, pretty enough but not prettier than her. Anyway, I do want to say also in terms of Jane, because I'm a Jane McCarrow stan, but once I think it's pretty much after her kill, where for me the movie slows down just a little bit, just in terms of like my interest. Like, I mean, again, I talked about the flip with Altieri and like all of that. Like, I'm there for that, but the thing you mentioned us missing at the end, like the perfect ending, I agree with you. That's a perfect way to end it. But I feel like it is prefaced with Captain Germani sitting in the car mansplaining to Anne everything that happened and why, what the influence was and how and everything like that. And I was just kind of like, oh dear God. Just kind of like, okay, so, because he's not just telling her like facts, he's like offering insights into like what motivated people to do what they do. And it's like, dude, you're not that deep. You know, you drink on the job.
But at that point, I mean, he's not doing it for Anne. It's for the audience. But I mean, even then, that scene takes up so little time. I just thought it was funny that because he called the police, like, for backup to come. But then he you know, if he had just stayed in the car, he would have still been alive. But he had to, like, go in to, and that's the thing, like, you know, like, never leave the dead body alone, because, you know, the killer will always come back. It should be like Anne-splaining.
Anne-splaining! Oh my God, if we made t-shirts for our pod, that would be a good one. Just hashtag Anne-splaining.
Anne-splain. Nobody would understand that. But
only the people who listen to the pod would. Yeah. That's the whole point.
Exactly. But there's more to, I mean, like, I saw that as more, like, it didn't occupy all that much screen time, because that's, you know, after she gets killed, that's where you get the reveal of the killer, and then the reveal of the other killer at the same time, because at that point we still don't know that there was another killer. It's because it's all still very twisty and, I guess you could say, incoherent at that point, until the detective comes in and says, like, you know, like, you killed those women. He's like, I didn't kill those other women. That wasn't me. And, you know, when he has his very crazy moment where he's just like, and I would have gotten away with it too. You know, like, yeah. It's just like the mask has come off, so I got to be, you know, crazy now.
Now I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you know, and I do appreciate Daria Nicolodi's, like, kind of like, you know, just like the panic of just like, there's dead bodies all over the place, and I mean, like, because it builds up to her hysteria.
It does. I mean, after Deep Red, it does sadden me a bit, because I know what she's capable of. Yeah. But I mean, the girl showed up to work.
But this is, I mean, this is around the time. I mean, I'm not sure if they were already separated as a couple, that being Daria Nicolodi and Dario Argento. But I do know that, like, they weren't together by the mid 80s or any time after that. So who knows? I know she was very disappointed that she was dubbed over in this movie, because she can speak English, and I think that out of all of the movies, because she's in every single one of those movies. She's in Suspiria. She has a cameo. She was supposed to play the main role, but I think she had injured herself, so she wasn't, like, in the movie in a larger capacity. But she wrote the movie, mostly wrote it with Argento. So it wasn't until Opera in 1987 that she actually got to use her actual speaking voice, which is couldn't be anything farther than Teresa Russell and Anne that we hear, because she's got a very, like, gruff sounding voice. It's funny because, like, if you watch all of those Argento movies, it's like a different voice in every single one of them, and she also looks different. She has a very different look in every single one of them too.
Yeah. She's got one of those faces that, like, you can put different hair on it and it looks completely different. Like The only other person I can think of who's like that is like Annie Lennox. Anytime you see her in a different wig, it's like her eye color changes, the shape of her face changes. You're like, who the fuck is that?
Oh my god! Now I want a single white female with Dario Argento.
Now, so do I. Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
The Italian version of it. He should have made it. That would have been awesome.
Oh god, he still could. He still could.
But sadly, she cannot. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, CGI. Let's. Oh god, don't get me started.
No, but anyways, I was gonna say. So there's all of that stuff like moves along really well for me because I mean that's basically like the end of any Scream movie where you get the killer reveal. The only thing that's missing is you don't like Anne is no Sidney Prescott. There is no real fight back. Like if this was like Scream and let's say that like Sydney was like locked herself in the closet by accident and Billy was like on the other side of it and there was like an umbrella propped up to it and she was trying to like open the door but couldn't get it open because of this umbrella. Then she finally pushed it and the umbrella went like flying into Billy's chest and like pinned him against the wall and killed him that way. That would have been like how how Dario Argento would have ended Scream. But
I think I'm just missing the Scooby-Doo aspect of it because in Scream it's always the killers themselves like explaining like why they do what they do and what motivated them and everything like that, and the fact that it's not coming directly from the source, that's what makes it feel mansplaining.
But he does have that thing because he's just like, I figured out who the killer was when you didn't, like speaking of the other, like the first killer. So he's just like, and when I figured out it was Cristiano Berti, and it didn't take me long.
Jesus.
Because he did explain himself, but the only thing that the detective explained was the backstory of like, he's like, when Peter Neal was a child there, or like a young man, there was a mysterious murder in his town, and that was the only thing. Even you doing
this impression is like
it's a bad impression.
It's not a deal breaker or anything like that. It's just a part of the movie that I'm just kind of like, like we were talking with Halloween 2018, the wrap it up moment. That's what I had with. I was just kind of like, wrap it up. I get it. We all get it, buddy. Just put it back. I don't know. Pants.
I liked it. There was a lightning storm. It was very cinematic. It worked well. And as far as like Scooby-Doo moments, like we did have that because they. When they had the map spread out when they're in the hotel room and they're like, who could it be? And then when they're like, oh, it was Cristiano Berti, or like, this happened, like he lives around there, and then they snuck onto his property. So that felt very Scooby-Doo to me. That's what I liked.
All of that is great, but I don't need that and then something else. Like
you're literally talking
Scooby-Doo formula.
You're literally talking about like 30-40 seconds of the movie, maybe.
It felt longer. It lasted long enough for me to go,
wrap it up.
So anyway, wrap it up. Speaking of, do you have anything else to say?
I mean, we could talk about this forever, but I feel like, just go see the movie, or, go find it, go stream it.
Hopefully you've seen it by now. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, but even if you have and you decided to let us spoil it for you, still watch it anyway because it's a great movie.
It's a fun ride. You're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people on purpose.
Okay, so first order of business, we need to pick a cherry on top. I think I know where you're going with this. But, do you want to tell me anyway, so we all know?
The only character I stan absolutely in this movie, Miss Jane McCarrow, I'd like to nominate for the cherry on top, just because there wasn't nearly enough of her in the movie, and every second she is on screen, I am captivated. Yeah. So that's my vote.
Yeah, I agree. I think you swayed me. I would have said... Bulmer just because it's John Saxon, but I mean, like, he doesn't really do much other than like the few things he and he's great. I mean, I just like it's I feel like I need to amend him for you picking him as the cherry picker on the Nightmare on Elm Street, but no, I'm okay with with Jane. I actually like that. She is very captivating in every scene that she's in. So let's go for Jane McCarrow. I love that she's the only character that really gets like a last name.
Aside from the
Peter.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's more characters that do, but I think of all the female characters, she might be the only one that has a last name.
Did Detective Altieri have a first name? I can't remember.
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
That doesn't count. You need a full name. Okay. So last week, we discussed Halloween 2018. And when it came time to the cherry picker, I nominated Aaron Corey, the podcaster, and you nominated Dr. Sartain, the doctor. And across Patreon, Instagram, YouTube, we had 61 votes for Aaron Corey versus 623 for Dr. Sartain.
Shit. I'm president.
Which, I mean, doesn't surprise me. I mean, if I had first dibs, I would have chosen
absolutely
Sartain as well, because I can't stand
of course.
him. So I can't be upset about losing to your vote here. But let's see what the good people are saying. Howl Puns says Sartain. He's that guy you didn't invite to the party, and he stays too late and gets way too drunk, and you're like, who is this creep? Go home, dude. He just exudes that energy. Also thought it was funny because like when I put the videos up, because I like to put a video on Instagram just so people know who we're talking about, just to get an idea. That I used a scene that was actually deleted from the movie, which I think makes him even cringier, where he's sitting in the cruiser with Hawkins, and he just starts picking his nose, and like he's going at like ferociously, like just digging in there, and Hawkins is just like, what are you doing? He's like, stop picking your nose in my car, and he just keeps picking. And he's just like, cut that out, like fuck. And he's like, he's like, I scratch my brain through my nose, or whatever he says. I just
So I hadn't seen that, so
really?
It's a deleted. I was because I didn't think it was a deleted scene. I actually thought it was one of those like line-oramas or like little improv takes that they put on the gag reel or something like that, because it was so ridiculous. That was actually like gonna be in the movie.
Well, I don't know why that surprises you.
I mean, I guess not. After, the banh mi and the peanut butter on my penis and all that stuff. But, wow. Yeah, that would have been that actually would have been a very different movie to me, because I would have just been like, what is happening? What am I watching?
Deal breaker for you, yeah.
That would have been a deal breaker. That would have been a like, okay, you know what? You're not even trying movie. Sorry, go on.
Dylan Jameson, Sartain hands down. I remember seeing this film as a part of a double feature that the local movie cinema did by playing 1978's Halloween, followed by this one, and there was something about Sartain that I didn't like from the jump. Maybe it's because he was shown to be the new Loomis, and no one can replace Donald Pleasance. But the thing that makes me want Sartain dead is that he stabbed poor Deputy Hawkins, Will Patton, and then ran him over.
Yep.
It was a dick move, yeah. Grant Dempsey says, tough choice. They both represent what's so awkward about the new trilogy. The grand mythologization, I hope I said that right, that's a big word, of Michael Myers, even though he wasn't all that prolific a killer by the start of this movie. And the assumption that he especially gives a shit about Laurie Strode, even though the new continuity gives no actual reason to think that they would have any special connection. I'm giving Aaron to the cherry picker. Ooh, thank you. Because at least the evil Loomis concept is interesting. Aaron's just an idiot. He's such a fucking idiot. Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Blue Box 87 says, Aaron! An exclamation point. Oh, thank you. Sartain was crazy and obsessed with Michael and ended up freeing him. I can respect that. Aaron was an annoying podcaster that provoked Michael and harassed Laurie for the views.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. Silent Saturn says Dr. Sartain. He is a complete failure / waste as a character and secondary antagonist. They really missed a trick by not making him their interpretation of Wynne, the doctor who wants to see Michael unleashed rather than stopped. The line that he is the new Loomis makes no sense to me, as in my opinion, Loomis only really became Loomis as the sequels went on, which were axed from canon. Yet another example of how they want to have their cake and eat it too, with this continuity. I am all for this trilogy slander.
Knew you would be.
Yeah, we'll just wait till the Halloween Kills one. Bruce Rando says, I apparently have the unpopular opinion that I liked Sartain as a character, wanted him to be more involved. Okay. Thomas Baker says, Sartain. He probably let Michael free. He decided to bring Michael to Laurie's. Plus, he puts the mask on. Also, his death was so amazing to see. It was. We didn't even talk about the smashing of the head, which is funny because that isn't the first time Michael has killed someone like that, because I think it happened in Rob Zombie's H2. But as you said in the episode of just like how the violence in 2018 is at least done in a way that isn't as nauseating as it was in that movie. So I respect that. I do like the kills in 2018.
Yeah.
Michael 92. I have watched it, or I haven't watched it. I stick to Halloween 1, 2, and H2O, which gives me a nice trilogy. Michael, you gotta expand. Carter, or just don't watch them. Go on. Whatever. Yeah.
Whatever.
Carter Ludwig. Sartain for the simple fact that he wore Michael's mask. His mustache was up against the lips, and poor Michael had to deal with that the rest of the movie.
Oh, that's gross.
Michael had
mustaches carry the odor of whatever you've eaten like before, so
I think if Michael can get his fingers blown off, he probably doesn't care too much about Sartain mustache.
I've worn that mask though, and I got to say it's pretty unforgiving. You don't want to share it. You don't want to share that mask with anyone else. Go on.
Kenta Voorhees says, yeah, Dr. Sartain. He was funny in the beginning, calling to Michael like a dog. Michael, we got some people to meet you, Michael. Hashtag I am Edward Black. My pick, 'cause I'm Eddie too. Okay.
Okay.
We got to get more Zacks watching this. Or listening. Kimberly.
In solidarity.
Kimberly says, I don't like either one of them, but definitely Dr. Sartain.
Okay.
Yeah, they both sucked. Anthony DePuzzo says, Sartain. He was obsessed with Michael in all the wrong ways. I also hated him for thinking he was worthy of putting on Michael's mask. I am a defender.
That is really, triggering for a lot of people. Yeah. Wow.
I am a defender of the twist, though. Didn't want him to be a rip-off of Loomis. No one can live up to that, so I'm happy they did something different. So that's a different opinion, at least there.
Yeah.
And then Jake Calday 52 says, Aaron is the male podcaster, right? So he asked, Aaron is the male podcaster, right? If so, did he even die? He was moving when we last saw him. LOL. Bloody to hell, but moving. I'm pretty sure if it wasn't confirmed in this
Halloween
movie
Kills?
In 2018, it was definitely confirmed in Halloween Kills when they had the news report and they said like X number of bodies were found at the gas station, which I think 4 bodies if it was the cashier, the mechanic, and the 2 podcasters.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm going.
I think so. That sounds familiar. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out in Halloween Kills when we discuss that.
Yeah.
But we've got some cherries to pick. And you're up first, so who are you nominating in Tenebrae?
I had to wrestle with this one for a while because my initial gut went to a smaller character.
Okay, but can you explain what the message was that I got last night at 12:30 in the morning?
Yeah, I was just about to go to bed, but I sent a message to Zack asking about the rules because I constantly forget them and I need to refresh them in my memory, and I don't have them saved on my phone. I'm sorry.
It's on Instagram.
I know it's on Instagram, and I know it's in my mail, like too. Like remember you emailed them to me like 3 times, like 3 different.
And I'm sure I'll do it again.
Yeah. But so I could have looked for it, but I was tired. It was 12:30, so I just asked him can we nominate characters who do not have credits, like an IMDb credit with a name of this person played this role kind of thing, and you answered me saying I don't think that was ever like a rule that we couldn't have people, but the thing is the whole reason the rules came about in the first place was because I made an assumption where I guess I shouldn't have, and we needed to make rules, so I wouldn't make that assumption anymore.
You're just trying to tiptoe around me and my wrath is what you're saying.
Or clarify beforehand so I don't end up going, oh shit, this argument I made up for this character is now completely useless. Let me, do what I did last time and pick a character I don't have a case for and don't really even give a shit. But the more I thought about it, the more the character who does not have a direct credit, and I'll explain that in a second, I started realizing there's another character who actually does have a credit in this who bothers me even more. The initial choice was going to be the homeless man, but he's not even credited. There's somebody who's credited as his voice. It's the same actor who did 5 other voices in the movie. But that's not necessarily, who we see on, everybody else. It's the person who's credited as playing the role is the person who we see on screen, and that guy didn't get a credit for one reason or another. It's just because he's gross and everything about him I dislike. But it's everything.
He doesn't bathe,
everything.
Grounds for death.
Everything he does and doesn't do in the movie just bothers me. That said, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my choice had to be Cristiano Berti, because the character who is the initial killer, who we already expressed in our conversation, is consumed by self-loathing and takes it out on innocent people. And that's unforgivable to me. Here's this thing that I hate about myself, and I recognize it in other people who don't hate it about themselves, and they're wrong. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cleanse the world. I'm going to wipe the slate clean with their blood. I just think it's so misguided. I feel like it's everything that's wrong with the world right now. And just that kind of motive, that kind of piety, looking down on other people who share the same traits as you and looking down on them because they share the same traits on you. They're just brave enough to be open about it and honest. It pisses me the fuck off. And even because the more I thought about it, he's not in the movie much, but the key scene is the exchange he has with Peter in the pre-interview when they're really going into the themes of the book and everything like that. And just the way he speaks, it is so programmed. It is so detached from any kind of compassion or anything that I even attribute to existing in this world. It sounds robotically brutal, and that fucking shreds me. That scares the shit out of me. So I want him dead. I want him dead twice. I want to watch him die. So vote your conscience, vote your heart. How about you, Zach?
Well, I hope that John Steiner, rest his soul, appreciates the fact that he's as this notable villain in Italian cinema is being nominated in this lowly podcast.
He did a great job. He did a great job playing this monster.
I'm actually gonna take your leftovers, and I'm gonna pick the homeless man. Okay. Because what is he even doing in this movie? Who invited you? My inkling, because I did think that you were going to go for the homeless man, and I was going to say, actually, in opposition of that, the department store manager, just because I feel like he's really the only thing that's different about him, and I'm going to quote you from an earlier episode, is the tax bracket. But but I still think at least there's the department store manager has context within what's going on. He's working at a store that's selling this book that she's trying to steal, and he gives her the book after, which I like, whatever. But the homeless man, like, he's just like aggressively grabbing and pursuing, like, he just came out of nowhere. Like, the movie would have been exactly the same if she had just walked to her gate and gone in to the house, and then the killer had been there. I guess it you know, adds tension because she had to be, you know, in that state of like hyperventilating and just being like, oh, I was almost attacked or whatever. But still, like, he didn't add anything to the movie. He could have been.
He's
he
just
could
a
have been
variation
excised.
on a theme.
Yeah,
he's a variation on a theme.
He could have been excised altogether. He's just he's creepy and gross and scary, and, you know, nothing against homeless people. You know, that's an actual issue that you know, should be taken care of. But it's just with this guy, in terms of like cinematically as a homeless person, like he's giving real homeless people a bad rap. So get him out of there. Get him out of there.
Destroy the propaganda.
Anyway,
shun the archetype.
Yeah, so those are your nominations for Tenebrae. Again, watch the movie if you haven't seen it. You need to know who we're talking about, and you can vote on Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube. Speaking of Patreon, I would like to welcome some new Patreon supporters. So, hello to Darla Burns, Alina O'Connell, Jason Duggar, Marie, and the Seajot, or the Kajot. I'm not sure how to say that.
This applause is for all of you.
Yes. Welcome aboard. And also a big thank you to Andre Felix for editing all of our podcasts as well. Speaking of Patreon, if you are a supporter, at least on the Freddy Krueger tier or higher, or you want to support us, every month we do a bonus episode of the podcast called The Cherry Picker After Dark. Last month we did season 1 of Buffy, where we ranked, analyzed, and just discussed all and the episodes from that. Very argumentative, very lots of controversy, and we're gonna do it all over again for season 2 this month, which is double the episodes, so that'll be fun. So that'll be later on in the month of September, if you want to get on board with that. Also, for any supporter on any tier, you will get to watch these episodes super early, and not have to wait for the Tuesday release date, and you'll get an extra vote on Patreon if that's important to you, unless it's something like Aaron Corey versus Dr. Sartain, where, you know, whoever picked Corey doesn't have a hope in hell. But with that, if you guys are listening to us, you can also watch these podcast episodes on YouTube. The channel name is The Cherry Picker. Subscribe to us as well. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can also listen to these podcasts on podcast streaming platforms. The link to the RSS feed is in the descriptions down below. Also, if you would love to, we would love to have you follow us on social media. The Cherry Picker Pod, at the Cherry Picker Pod on Instagram. Eddie, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Edward is Truth, one word. And you can find me on YouTube, Edward is Truth, one word. I watch movies there. Subscribe. People have been subscribing still, too. I feel really bad. I'm going to put out some content because people are subscribing. I need to give you guys more because you deserve more. So thank you, everybody who's subscribed and commented and been just so kind. It's been such a lovely atmosphere so far. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. And then also, I'm individually on Instagram at RetroBitchface. I'm also on Twitter at ZackCherry8, and I'm on YouTube somewhere there, Zack Cherry. ZACK. But anyway, what do we have going on next week?
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Now I just have to find it. It's that movie with that guy. He was dating, that pop star. Yeah, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. That one.
Bodies. That's the biggest takeaway you can have from that movie is.
It's just because I haven't seen the movie yet, and I saw on Fandango he's basically the poster, so it was like, oh great. Anyway,
there's more than just him on the poster.
Well, the poster that I have on my Fandango, no.
Oh,
so
okay.
you have a better poster than I do on your Fandango.
I guess I don't
That
even
sounds
know
like
what is a
dirty.
Fandango.
Fandango is an app that you can buy movie passes through. Like, you can buy your tickets and choose your seats and all of that. Like,
Must
in
be an
advance
American
on
thing. I don't know.
I guess I thought it was pretty universal, but maybe it's not. Maybe it is just.
Anyways, we will be back for Bodies cubed or Bodies to the power of 3.
Bodies
times 3 next week.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.